Hi folks, welcome back. Alright, let's get the lid to fit, and then I'm going to finish off that top side a little bit differently than what we have. Everything gets dusty laying around here. Now that's a little bit tight, but that's okay because I didn't realize I still had pencil marks on the underside. So that'll allow me to get rid of the pencil marks and probably get the fit just right. I don't want to leave any marks on the end of that. Hold that real lightly. Waxing the sole. I'm just going to take a light pass all the way around. That'll get rid of those marks. Okay, oh, little plane track right there. Feels good. Okay, that's still a bit sticky, so I will I'll do the rest of the fitting right there on the rabbit. Need a skew block plane. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to finish that. Up with the shoulder plane. And let me get my little gauge block. So it's loose, and it gets tight just a little bit here in the middle. You just got to take this part of it slow because it's not worth hurrying and ruining what you spent so much time trying to get right. Well, that doesn't feel tight at all. Check the end. That's nice and loose. So the only other thing I suspect is that, oh yeah. Okay, what the problem is here, when we put it together, the two grooves are offset just a little bit. Can you see that in there where my thumb is? Right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. Maybe look down this way. Look down this way. I'm going to use a pencil to point it out. There's just a little offset right there in the two grooves. Can you focus on that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Right. And on this side it is as well. So that means we may have to take a little bit more off of here. Let me try that. Yeah, it's just a little more snug than I want. So I suspect the back at this end is sticking up into the groove a little bit as well. I'm just going to take one full pass on each side and then stop and check it. Okay, there, perfect. Alright, now we've got to get this end to fit a little bit better because of that offset. I'm going to end up having to take some off of that. Shoot, I don't want to squeeze that and wreck it. So I can feel a little bit of a high spot. Now, thinking out loud, I'm going to taper this a little bit, or I'm going to tilt it, bevel it a little bit, so that it will slide into that back groove just a little bit easier. It'll also compensate for where those two grooves didn't line up perfectly, and it should do it without showing a line on the long side of the rabbet. No, it's still too tight. I could force it, but I don't want to. I'll do a little more on this side, and I'm going to flip it over, and I think I'll do a little bit on the bottom side as well. So just to make sure that they understand, what I'm doing right here is I'm just going to bevel this end a little bit, primarily because the three grooves, the two on the long sides and on the end, didn't line up perfectly at the end. Try that. Am I moving too fast for you, Frick? No. Okay. Now, I think I will come in here. All right, so I'm battling this same issue with the fact that the groove doesn't line up. So right here at the end, I'm just going to back this off a little bit. Again, I don't want to see it. Like I can right there. You see that? Where my finger is? Can you see that little ridge?
Yep.
I don't want to see that. I've got this shoulder plane set for a very fine cut. I can see where that's coming up tight. Can't really tell. Have another look at this. Okay, so it's all, I'm not going to do anything to the bottom side because the groove is, the offset is right here. So the top side needs to be narrower still. The bottom side's probably not even touching because it's actually sitting down below. Right there, and the same on the other side. So if anything good came out of this, the fact that it's the same offset on both sides. So we need to make a little more of a bevel out here. You need to take a little heavier cut to get it brought down. Now I'm just going to tap that ever so lightly. Really not taking much material at all. I'll look and see if I can see what I'm doing. Yeah. If you look real close right there, you can see how it just starts to nosedive. You see it at all? It's kind of a hard thing to spot.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? That's not bad. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it open. That's the only problem. It just snugs up right at the end, which might keep the lid closed. I'm going to go ahead and do this lid. Now, what I want to do, I think, is I want to get this looking a little more even. I want it somewhat haphazard, but obviously a little more even than it is right there. So get this thing heading in the right direction. Keep the bench dog down low. Okay. Now this one's too high, so I'm going to take that down. I'm working it from this side as well. It's one of those things where once you do it, you're committed. And sometimes you start to question whether or not you should have done it. If I really hated it, I could easily go in and make another lid, so it's not the end of the world. I think I'm gonna start another one right here in the middle. Just because I don't like the way the spacing is. Slipped. You got to use that little wee shallow groove to hold the plane. It's not that easy. I want to take that down a fair bit more. I'm using my finger right here on the outside to kind of run right along the edge of the board to help steer till I can get that groove deeper. Now, it seems to be getting deep here and not as deep here, so I'll take some short strokes from the end in. And then once I even it out, I can carry them through a little bit farther. Okay, that's starting to look a little bit better. Make this one a little bigger. This is the part that's most noticeable, so I think I'll wear this outside edge down a little bit more. So I'm aiming the plane more to ride this upper side of that groove to try to bring that outside edge down a little more. Now I'm doing just the opposite on the next one. I'm aiming to wear away this high side a little more than the rest. Alright, like it or not, that's what we got. Okay, that's still a little bit too sticky. And I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to open it if that gets any tighter because of the wood expanding. Now, try that there. Okay, that's not the answer because it's not making any difference now. So I'll take a little more off of this. These two outside edges, or outside rabbets. Make sure there isn't any glue in there. I'm going to try to go in with a really sharp chisel. What I'm going to attempt to do is just to back that off a little bit. If you get in, come over here for behind over my left shoulder. Okay, so here's the problem right here. Can you see that?
Just a sec.
Right there where the pencil is?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to try to get in. Just pare away at that. Now, I don't want to leave a sharp mark out here, so I need to taper that cut. Now this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because I got to change positions. Maybe you can see it over my left shoulder still. This is that 17-degree chisel, so it's freshly sharpened. Okay. Now I'll grab a quarter, 3/16. Just move out those shavings. Can you see?
No.
Right there. Just want to get them off at where they're still attached at the bottom. Still a bit tight. It's too tight for this, for what for our thumb recess. So I've got to get it to fit. But I also want to see if I can clean this up too while I'm at it. That's a rather rough surface. I should be able to clean that up. Now this is going to cut clean one way and not as clean the other, so I've got to determine which direction I got to go. See how nice and clean that is off of the shooting board? We should be able to make this as clean. Okay, that's the direction. So I'm going to turn it around and make it a little easier to do. Got to be careful not to tear out here, so I'll come in with my chisel and just cut a little chamfer right here. See how much better that looks? Now tell me you care about this.
It does look nicer.
Right, and we'll just clean that up. Actually, I have to put this back in between the dogs, so I'll save that. And that one needs to be cleaned up a little more too. All right, let's go back to seeing if we can get this. What are we going to value this box at? 15, how many episodes?
I think this is 18 or 19.
Don't exaggerate.
I'm not.
Has nothing to do with episodes. We've been learning all the time, all the way.
That is true.
Unfortunately, you didn't learn to count.
I know, I will eventually, before I die. Okay, there. Doesn't stick anymore. Good. Now I just want to come in here and I want to clean that up. That ridge right there. And we don't really have one over on this side, so I don't have to worry about that one. So just some careful work right here at the end. Can't see it, but I can still feel it, so another pass. There. Now, probably ought to cut a little chamfer all the way around there. For a couple reasons. It'll feel a little bit better on the hands, and it won't show a ding quite so bad. You can tell which direction you should be going because it'll feel either smooth or rough. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that in because I can't follow those scallops. Okay. Now, let's clean up. I think we're going to get a better cut going this way. I should use a block plane, but we do this, if we don't take care right here to cut a little chamfer there first, we'll end up breaking those fibers out. No, we had a cleaner cut going the other way. Read that one wrong. I may need to stop and sharpen that plane. Let me see if I can get it better with this. Yeah. Just as I got toward the end, I realized I didn't cut a little chamfer right there. I'm going to be able to get rid of that white line. Yeah. Let's, now I got to sharpen the plane real fast. I got to do this right. I just got to get a really good edge on that. And I think I'll go back to do it on a shooting board rather than trying to balance it.
Looks familiar.
Seen this before?
Couple times.
think I mentioned it in one of the other clips we did today, but somebody brought up in one of the forums that this is actually a 30,000 grit stone. I've been calling it a 16. I didn't realize that I had switched it out. But a 16 is fine for what we're doing. You want to spend the money on a 30,000, but it's a $310 stone versus 112, 115 for a 16,000. Get the burr a few degrees higher. A few seconds on either corner. Bring in the ruler trick. A couple extra seconds here because there's a fair bit of pitch on the back of that blade. I switch back and forth between my number 6 Wood River and my rehabilitated Stanley, and there's no particular reason. I use them both equal amounts, so I'm not using it for any reason and not to be able to tell you. I'm just whichever one I happen to grab. Out. And that should be sharp enough to give me a nice clean cut on the end of this piece. Okay, I'm going to flip it over and cut a little tiny chamfer, a very shallow one at that, so it's not so noticeable. I want to go until I get rid of those lines that I left off of that shoulder plane. Okay, that's getting better, but not quite done. Need another little chamfer. Still there. Quick one to clean up this end as well. Okay, before we go too far, I closed it a little bit, but that's all right. All right, now let's get some wax on that real quick before I get it dirty with my hands. Now, once I do this, we're gonna sit down, so to speak, and go over this thing with a fine-tooth comb. See what we did right, see what we did wrong, and hopefully I can give you some suggestions on how to improve, or what I would do to improve. And then I'll show you the other one that I made, because I couldn't stand the look of the dovetails on this one. That looks dirty. Oh, I guess the idea is to make it look like it's been used. That we got right. Woodworking world lost an individual this past week. My mentor is Dale Nish. Dale, if you're not familiar with him, is a world-renowned wood turner, an author, he's probably, he's been labeled the father of wood turning because he's really the individual responsible for bringing wood turning to where it is today. And Dale's wife, Noreen, who I've known for a long time, died this past week. So my thoughts and prayers go out with the Nish family, go out to the Nish family. Okay, get all that residue off. Wouldn't be a bad idea to let this dry a little bit before you wipe it off. It really should have a few more coats. Okay. That lid should slide a little better. The wax on it. Now, let's look at this real close. There's a few things that I was really disappointed in, but after we were committed to it, it's not like we could change it much. How are we for time? What have we got?
We're at 31 minutes.
Yeah, let's read this again. Okay. Don't really like the way this turned out, but it could grow on me. Don't like the way the bottom ended up. I'd much rather have had the bottom more scalloped like this. Now, if we come in here and look at these dovetails, this really makes me nauseous. This, you see this, whatever's going on behind the pins. Look at on this side, it's even worse. This is terrible. I circled that, it's just terrible. It's just not crisp. You know, we got a little bit of a gap there. This area usually is a result of the chisel not cutting clean, and there is the wood fiber fractures just below the surface. You start to plane, you start to expose it, and you lose that nice crisp line. Personally, I would throw this in the garbage. Look at this side, we see the same thing. Got a gap here, the shoulder's not tight. We don't have a nice clean corner. Same thing over here. Look at this end. It's hard to find one really good one. Same thing here, just bad. Bad, bad, bad. I spent how many years earning a reputation of being the guy that knows how to cut dovetails, and the first time we go on camera live and we do something like that. I once asked Alan Peters, it's the first time I took a class with him, and I said, well, Alan, what would you do if you're building something and you screw up in a dovetail? And he looked at me with this humble yet puzzled look, and he said, well, we don't screw up. At that point, I broke down into the we're not worthy bit. However, he said, well, if we did, he said, we'd start over. And that's exactly what I'm suggesting you do. You end up cutting a dovetail like that you're not satisfied with, don't spend a bunch of time trying to fix it. Start over. This is about getting it right, not about fixing 1,000 mistakes. So I did the exactly same thing that I'm telling you to do. I started over. I did this one on the weekend, so we'd have it ready for today. Now let's take a closer look at this. I haven't done the lid on it yet. Now, in contrast, let me put a little bit of wax on that real quick so that the end grain will stand out, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about a little bit better. The wax makes the wood wet, and it causes that end grain to have a little more contrast. And just so you think I'm picking out the good corner, we'll flip it over and do this one as well. Now you know even though I didn't do these on camera, I didn't do them with a machine. Didn't get all the scribe line out either, now that I see. Okay, let's contrast the two. Much cleaner looking. In behind, we don't have that shadow occurring. Lines are nice and crisp. A little bit of pen mark there I didn't get off either. Flip it over and have a look on this side. You're not commenting, Frick. You usually do. No. See the corners? See nice, sharp corners? This is what I want. Let me find the worst example over here. This, oh, it just makes me hurl when I look at that. That is terrible. So unless you're getting, over here, Frick. Unless you're getting this, don't be satisfied with that. That's going to become a nail box, not a candle box. I might even throw it out. This is what you're shooting for. This is what you want to be able to get. I have no excuses. If I would, I'd have already used them. Now I want to show you. I did make a couple of small repairs in this, and on 4 corners, 2 repairs would be acceptable. We wax them both, and then point them out. Maybe I don't even have to point them out. You might be able to see them. I ended up with a couple of little gaps. While the glue was still wet, I went in, made a wedge. We'll cover that. I think I did one right there. That looks like a wedge. It looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah, there's a wedge right in there. And a little bit of an overcut with the saw right here. That doesn't bother me nearly as much as... I think I put a... Oh, maybe it's there. Oh, well, I thought I did. My eyesight's bad. I know I repaired 2. They're in there, and I'm not trying to be funny. That one I can definitely... Oh, there it is right there. This one, see that? Little wedge in there. Now I could have taken more time and found grain that matched a little bit better, but that blends right in. And this one, that was a little more noticeable. Okay. Oh, by the way, here, have a look at the bottom real quick. This is what I meant. See how I scalloped the bottom? Just looks a little neater, a little more uniform. That's more the idea of what I should have done on the other side. This one I'll actually finish inside. But there's your candle box. It's a good lesson in half blinds, and I hope if you try this, you'll understand when I say cutting dovetails in pine is not easy. There's so many things that hardwood will forgive you, but pine won't. Okay, I think this wraps up our candle box project. Next up is we're going to do a haul table, but before we do that, we're going to talk about tools and some other things that we need to cover. And I actually want to go in and do that lesson where I teach Jake to cut a dovetail. I think that's going to be a great way to finish this session on dovetails before we move into mortise and tenon. And it'll give you a chance to kind of stand in his shoes while I teach him how to do it. Okay, been good having you. We'll see you back soon.